support the Petroleum Products Pricing Amendment Bill of 2019, and I do so with some trepidation after the contribution of the member for Mount Lawley and the member for Armidale, because I'd never would want to grapple with legal definitions with those two particular gentlemen. But it is an interesting opportunity to re-examine Fuel Watch and how it's been operating, and this particular amendment seeks to address the definition of a range of businesses that are covered by Fuel Watch, and it's driven by the introduction of Costco as a membership-based organisation. And I was reading a little bit in the West Australian about Costco as a retailer, and as a member for Hillary's was saying, it produces an opportunity to buy anything from diamond rings to coffee to coffins and electronics. So I can't imagine actually going into a supermarket chain, buying a coffin, putting it on the top of the roof rack and driving out with it. But I'm not so sure about the romance of saying to my partner that I just bought you this beautiful diamond ring at downtown Costco. It sort of takes away from the actual romance of the situation. But better than no diamond ring, absolutely, yeah. But it's an interesting development in the whole area of retail space and the cross-linking of multiple products that you can buy from one location linked to memberships. And I'm sure that in their offering in terms of fuel, if they link that to a discount option, then when you do go to buy the top value coffin, you'll get a very good contribution on your fuel pricing when you go and fill up on the way out. So it is an interesting challenge, and my understanding was that when the issue of being brought under Fuel Watch was raised with Costco as an independent membership-based organisation, that they were quite supportive of that, but I would leave that for the Minister to confirm. But Fuel Watch itself, we've heard from the contribution of the member for Armidale and the member for Mount Lawley about its history, and really predicated on this notion of providing, it takes us back almost to Adam Smith economics, the notion of providing perfect knowledge of the marketplace to consumers so that they can use that knowledge to shop around and get the best deal possible. And it's interesting because online particularly provides the opportunity for that. So going online and seeing the whole spectrum of the marketplace, whether it's in fuel or whether we're seeing that sort of disruption in clothing or in the accommodation market, it provides the consumer with instantaneous knowledge and incredible market power about where they decide to shop. Now, of course, a member for Armidale mentioned that sometimes when you do get a particularly low price of fuel transmitted on Fuel Watch, you suddenly find there's a queue of vehicles almost instantaneously running down the street leading into it. So there's a balance there between, do I want to spend the time actually lining up and taking advantage of a cheap fuel price, or will I just accept that I'll pay 1 or 2 cents down the road and get in and out fairly quickly? And it gets to be a complex calculation because I'm sure some people are working out both time and the cost of running the car to go that extra distance to get the fuel. So it's an interesting one, but like many country members and like many people in my electorate, I seem to spend an awful lot of money on fuel. And as soon as there's a price spike, it seems to double enormously, and there's not a lot of understanding about what drives the market. Certainly, when fuel prices go up, it becomes a very, very topical issue in the bush. And that's because people are reliant on vehicles, much more so than in the metropolitan area. And we do have some public transport in the Bunbury electorate. As you move out of the Bunbury electorate, that gets pretty thin on the ground in terms of people's needs to get around for shopping or for medical appointments or whatever. So the reliance on a motor vehicle is pretty crucial, and the costs associated with a motor vehicle mean that when there's an increase in fuel prices, it becomes a very important issue for people in the bush, particularly those people who are doing it tough. So I've been quite interested in fuel pricing in regional Western Australia because there's always a comparison between the metropolitan area and the regions for the cost of fuel. But when I had a quick look at Fuel Watch, Country Fuel Watch, just before this contribution, I noticed that if you're in Manjimup and you go to Caltex Woolworths, you pay $1.37.9 for ULP. If you go into Treendale, just to the north of Bunbury, Caltex Woolworths, you'll be paying $1.46.9. So there's a 9 cents difference there. And I know from talking to members of the transport industry that the cost of delivery of fuel is generally about 1 to 2 cents per litre over that sort of distance. So Manjimup which is 120 odd kilometres further from the terminal than Bunbury, is paying a lot cheaper for fuel. And we see that reflected over a number of localities. And that's a sort of, on the one hand, the transparency that Fuel Watch gives that enables consumers to see that price differential. But on the other hand, it leaves them with the fundamental question, why is that differential there? And what does it mean? And that's a question that comes up repeatedly. So it's not so much an issue of a comparison between regional and metropolitan prices. It's why is there such variation revealed by Fuel Watch in regional areas that can't easily be explained by concentration of the market, so consumer demand, or the actual transport costs associated with delivery of the fuel. So I ran a little survey last year and monitored this over a couple of months, talked to people in my electorate, and we produced a petition of just over 2,500 signatures calling for an examination of this by the ACCC to see whether there were any industry conduct issues associated with this. And that was tabled in the Senate by the Honourable Louise Pratt, but unfortunately just before the last federal election, so it tended to get a bit lost in the wash-up of that election. But I am onto it, and we will be monitoring fuel pricing in our region fairly closely over the next few months. It was interesting because when we ran that petition, and when it got a lot of airplay in the media, we actually noticed that the differentials between regional locations immediately around Bunbury narrowed considerably. So there was no longer a 7 or 8 cents per litre difference in favour of Harvey over Bunbury. It actually narrowed and evened up quite considerably. So public scrutiny of those issues had a big impact for some reason on pricing. Now, I don't know what those reasons are, but I'm sure that it is very worthy of some further investigation to get to the bottom of that. The other issue with fuel pricing, and I notice that it's based on the notion of the retail standard retail price, the price that the fuel is offered at, not incorporating any discounts, etc. But many times I've gone past fuel stations and I've had to take a second look because I've had a series of prices published which are the standard retail price, and then next to it the prices with the various shopper discounts or membership organisation discounts that are available. And it's very easy for a consumer to become confused about what is the actual price. So there's an oversupply, in a sense, of information that sucks a person in. They get to the browser, realise, oh, this is the price, but by then, it's too late, you're committed. So you might as well just fill up. So it's not good enough that we have Fuel Watch and just say that that is enough in order to protect the consumer. We do need to have a look at this whole area because it is such a fundamental part of the household expenditure for many, many families, and many for whom this makes a difference between being in the positive or in the black at the end of the fortnight. The other area that's a real anomaly that only came to light just recently in my electorate, and in the regions we do have the country age pension fuel card, which is a contribution by the state government to pensioners in regions, in regional WA, to the tune of about $550 per year. But if you go and present that fuel card to pay for your fuel, and you present your shopper dockets to claim the 4 cents discount, you're not able to. And I've not got to the bottom of why we're not able to, or people aren't able to. It doesn't seem to be a regulatory issue or an eligibility issue. It seems to be a policy issue between the retailer of the fuel and whoever they are collaborating with in terms of the discounting arrangements. But at the end of the day, the consumer who has dutifully gone out and shopped and built the loyalty up with the shopping outlet or the retail outlet, or who has joined the membership organisation and wants to claim that loyalty in relation to their use of the discount fuel card and make it the country aged care fuel card and make it go as far as possible, they are not able to. So there's a few areas in there that the transparency on the one hand gives people the opportunity to have the knowledge to make decisions. And if you're in an area where there are multiple fuel outlets and it's easy to traverse from one to the other to make the decision about which one you want to go to, it's a system that works very well. But in regional WA, if we have the issues associated with geographic barriers that make it uneconomic to go somewhere else, or we have this funny pricing arrangement that seems to suggest that the further you are away from a terminal, the cheaper the fuel can be, and if you're in an area where there's concentration of market demand, the fuel seems to be a bit more expensive, then someone needs to have a look at that. We need to delve into it and find out what is driving that, because the consumers are paying for that. And then the Country Aged Care Pension Fuel Card, which is an initiative directly designed to help people who are on low incomes, not able to then take advantage of the shopper discounts, etc. That seems to me a serious anomaly. So on the one hand, the fuel card delivers fantastic benefits. It puts transparency into the system. It does mean that fuel retailers are watching each other and seeing where they fit in relation to the scheme of things. But on the other hand, there are some serious issues there that we need to take quite a solid look at. So from my point of view, I think that the bill itself is a very good bill. It's capturing and refining Fuel Watch. It's doing that in the face of what we are seeing in terms of the changing nature of retail and the changing nature of alliances that are building up in retail. So it's a very good bill from that point of view, and I support it. But it raises for me those questions that we particularly face in regional WA about the conduct of industry and the conduct of fuel pricing to make sure that consumers are not being disadvantaged simply by living in the bush. I do commend the bill to the House. Thank you.
Member for Belcast.